So, hello, Sally. Great you're joining us here. And as well, you joined us on the weekend for our HackZurich event. So, what were your highlights coming, from outside to the event and as well experiencing this atmosphere?
Oh, I loved it. First of all, I thought it was amazing. I think the power of community and teams coming together really struck to the fore for me. Brilliant community, real warmth of everyone coming together. And I think also the focus on tech for good challenges. So, for example, your one very much focused on climate, flood, real world disasters and how we can use data and extended reality technologies to address that. I think really captured a lot of people's attention. I love seeing people trying new technology for the first time, like the HoloLens 2, for example. It's amazing just seeing their reaction and how they're kind of experiencing something in a different way for the first time. And also just seeing how different teams form. Some people have been kind of pre-formed before they went to the event, other people meeting there for the very first time, kind of forming their roles, being very agile on the fly. And it was an amazing experience. And then judging it as well, incredibly difficult because of the caliber of the entries we had involved. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I think they're joyful events, hackathon, and also the beginning of something. They're never the end of something. We're seeing entries here that will come, people come back to and work on and get mentoring and support and bring them to real world life. So yeah, I think it's an amazing opportunity for so many teams there, and it's great to be part of it.
Oh, that's cool. And maybe for all the ones, who are listening in, they maybe don't know how it works, but it's just to know this. We had no clue how many submissions we get. So you joined our jury, who is then evaluating every project which has been handed in.
Absolutely.
So we have put out this challenge, and we haven't known until Sunday how many submissions we really get and how much work you have to do. But how was the approach in the jury? Maybe you share a little bit about, there may be hackers listening in, there may be future talents looking in who wants to participate, and we can maybe give them an impression about how did the jury really work out who will be the winning team.
Yeah, it was, and you were right, because we didn't know literally until we got the forms through what we were going to see. And there was a lot to go through in that period of time as well, because there was a lot of entries, which is great, which is fantastic. But yeah, we had a criteria brief to have a look at in terms of how we could consistently evaluate all the different entries. And so for one thing, for example, would be alignment to the actual description of the challenge itself and how much the purpose and what you'd built really aligned to that. Other things is around the technology development, for example, as well. And also the team building approach and how that came together, and the communication, the story, the narrative sharing of that as well. So we had very clear elements to compare. The other thing I think was really helpful was the breadth and depth of experience on the team. So we had people from Swiss Re, we had people externally, kind of that independent view like myself, and also people from Microsoft, the challenge partner too, who had a very big technical depth. So again, we all shared our personal experience. We kind of split into mini teams to an extent as well, and then came together, and it was kind of a filtering process. There were some that were slightly clearer. For example, maybe they weren't quite so on brief and could be ruled out slightly earlier, but there were kind of 6 or 7 that all had incredibly strong elements, and it became very, very difficult to compare that. So there was a lot of kind of judging between us and kind of voting for our favourites and things like that, particularly the final 2. Very, very tough indeed. But again, one of the things we wanted to do as part of that, not just have that one winner, so to speak. So obviously we did have a challenge winner, but we wanted to credit with gold and silver entries, with some training support, etc., for other teams that had done really well. And at the end of the hackathon, there was a call that went out to come back to the booth and come and talk to more and continue those conversations. And for one example of this is there was one team, for example, I felt was incredibly strong on their story. You could take that story almost into any boardroom and people would be curious and excited and want to be part of that, but they didn't have the depth and technical experience, for example. Another team was the opposite way around. See the power of those 2 teams coming together. I think you can have amazing things. So I'm really excited about what can happen, about continuing those conversations and training and support, and not just for the winning team, but some of those other ones. I could see how they could form new ones, which would be really exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And this was for me as well. One of the highlights was the technical experience and the interest of all the participants. I mean, throughout the 3 days, we had our booth together with our partner Microsoft, and there was so much interest from the first minute. These people came to our booth, asked questions to us on the as well, very technical level. I think we get a lot of interest in the challenge, and maybe we share with our audience as well, who maybe don't want to read, all through all the documents provided at the HackZurich.com webpage. Our challenge was about really resilience, trying to make risks more tangible with a new way of technology. I mean, everybody knows this. We are humans. We don't really like to talk about risks, about things which can happen to us.
Absolutely.
Specifically in the area we are working within Swiss Re as a reinsurer, but as well Corporate Solutions, who was really helping us giving this challenge about risks. Nobody of us has really ever experienced. Who of us has experienced a flood, wildfire, catastrophes like typhoons, which we hear right now in the news, or as well, earthquakes. This new technology, we call it extended reality because we didn't want it to really bind them into a virtual reality where you really are in a virtual room, or augmented reality where you maybe just have some real objects and then, adding kind of an experience on top of this, on how to use this technology to make it more really emotional as well. What is it to experience such a disaster? Because many people need to prepare for this in the future.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned this aspect of really tech for good, really make the world more resilient. I think that's the very close ambitions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And awareness around that as well, helping to walk in another person's shoes or another person's experience. I think if you have that type of immersive technology, you just see things and feel things in a completely different way. And some of the teams also interpret it about that everyday use of technology as well. So how can you combine the use of a HoloLens with, for example, only having a smartphone on you in a particular situation? They thought about it from all those different lenses, and I love that fact as well. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful technology to make a difference for good, for sure.
Exactly. And then, and this back to what we had initially on the jury, I was impressed because people coming to a hackathon maybe don't have the experience yet to really program in such advanced technologies. So I think this is the highlight, which I mentioned. It was like we were impressed about the amount of submissions and as well the quality of their thought process, going through this.
And it's lovely when you see teams doing that for the first time, and they're even making comments. And some of the forms that were submitted to the jury as well, they even had little thank you notes about thank you for the support and the time at the booth. And we really appreciate you taking the time to help us out. We'd never done this before, and that's why we picked this challenge. We care about the challenge itself. We care about climate impact, for example, but also we want to do something we've never done before. We haven't used Unity. We've never used a HoloLens. We wanted to challenge ourselves as a team. And it was really, it's 40 hours. It's really tough to do something you've never done before, but the challenge is worth it. And we really appreciate the help along the way. And there were several teams that made little extra points around that and taken that time to say thank you. And that's really heartening to see as well. I love that. Yeah, it's really good to see.
That's great. I think it's as well a great combination for people who attended virtually, because we should not forget there were 500 people in person, which we experienced like on site, who, as you mentioned, came to the booth, asked questions. But there were over 1,000 attending virtual in 72 countries all around the world, students, young entrepreneurs, etc. And that's why we had our Discord channel, which was really frequently pushed with new information. Questions got answered. So as well, thanks to all the Swiss Re, Microsoft and technical teams in the background, who were not present, but were available to all the hackers throughout day and
night. Exactly.
To answer these questions. And specifically for the people on site, I think it made a difference that we had HoloLenses they could lend. And they could test out their application. So I think that made it special. And as well, I think this is what I learned talking to some of the hackers, the learning aspect. We gave them a challenge where they should where they could grow. It was not a challenge like, okay, go for an application development or software, etc. So the people specifically who choose our challenge, they really learn something in a very short period of time.
And it's that learning on the fly, learning by doing, as I like to say. And it's so important. And again, spending time talking to some of the teams during the process of that, you see how they're working and kind of being very agile with their roles and sharing and collaborating and sharing across teams as well, not just within the teams that are formed. I love that. And that's what we need. I think if you think about what's happened over the last couple of years with the pandemic, one of the biggest things, one of the positive things to come of that is kind of co-creativity. creativity, people coming together and collaborating in new ways. And I think you saw a microcosm of that. It was such a warm, purposeful, let's use tech as a force for good. This is, okay, there's a competition, there's a challenge, but people were working even across teams to support each other and help each other out, lending each other kit and all sorts of different things, and a lot of kind of self-mentoring going on too. So I think it's very powerful and a real kind of contagion of positive change, I'd like to call that. It's amazing. And as you said about the hybrid approach as well, world's global hybrid hackathon, the biggest one we've ever had. So it's an amazing kind of testament to everybody involved in that.
Exactly. Awesome. And this is maybe really something which we now can take on, and maybe you share your experience about this, about digital innovation. I mean, now we have been present at the HackZurich. We have all these really great people who are attending this. I think, what can we take now to bring back to our communities? Because, you know, our clients have challenges, our customers have challenges. We maybe need to learn something. How can we approach, you know, this innovation piece, this transformation piece in a day-to-day world? Have you there any thoughts on how maybe bringing this into big corporates, maybe more taking the bits and pieces from a hackathon into the world, really addressing the needs of our clients?
Well, I think one thing we can do in organisations as well is almost have a mini kind of version of this experimentation, the ideation kind of, almost like a garagey kind of approach, if you see what I mean. And I think we need to bring that kind of philosophy more into how we develop new solutions. I think the agile aspect of everything we've seen at a hackathon, we've got a lot to learn from that, about that speed of change. You know, for example, the change management approaches we use in organisations, things like CI/CD or continuous innovation, continuous deployment, that's incredibly effective. You know, and again, also it reduces risks. You know, smaller, more incremental change actually reduces risk. It doesn't increase it. So I think it brings to the fore we need to have the right change management to accompany our type of change. And we need to do more outreach with the community. I think we need to look at how we onboard new talent into organisations as well. I mean, you did an amazing thing with the QR code with the, you know, for people to submit their CVs. And I was having conversations there about, you know, potentially one of the outcomes of this is not having this traditional CV format in the future. You know, allow people to upload a little video about what they've done or show and demonstrate a project. Because I think it's that demonstration of what you can do, why you want to do it, and what you can offer. You know, the world of work is changing so massively. And I think we need to look at how we onboard that talent and how we bring teams together and bring this external talent in, and form new types of teams. You know, and also one of the people I was speaking to saying, I don't want a full-time job. I'm 23. I want an 80%, 20%, and I want to work with teams in a different way and kind of be an kind of external resource too. So it just opens up new questions about how we work with people, how we encourage talent, and what we're actually looking for, you know, when we put those applications out there. So I think it's very, very exciting. And I can certainly see some of the teams that came through your challenge kind of being brought in and would be an amazing kind of asset to come and, you know, on a client visit and kind of, this is how we would approach this. Give us a target. We'll come up with something in a very short period of time and show what we can do. So I think it just opens up new ways of working that can be very dynamic and really exciting and get people more curious about different types of roles too. So yeah, I think it's very exciting. A lot to be learned from that.
Exactly. And exactly the aspects you mentioned, you know, this aspect of like working in a new way. Yes. I mean, we have collected the contacts of all the people who participated in our challenge, because that's exactly what we want to do. The risk engineering team who was behind our challenge.
Yes.
I mean, it was not the first time they looked on new technologies. They shared their float project where they captured the data via drones, you know, and on the flood scenario. So this was the immense data we could even provide to the hackers as a starting point. And I think that's something which we would like to elaborate more on. How can we now do a project together with such, you know, great talents, you know, working in the way like a hackathon, and together with clients who maybe are courageous to go into this like new type of elaboration on how to solve the challenge together. So we have some of the contacts now, and we will see the risk engineering team definitely is very dedicated to work in a very new way.
Yeah, it came across so strongly and on all sides as well. So as you're saying, your team there being really keen to experiment and look at new ways of doing things, but equally the appetite for all the talent we saw in the room, really keen to explore new opportunities as well. So it's really exciting. If you've got that synergy coming together, you know, there's a catalyst for amazing innovation and at scale and speed. So I'm excited about that, but also the shared commitment to use technology as a force for good and show what that can be done and share the stories about that to encourage more people to come into the space as well. So I think there's a ripple effect from this type of activity as well, which is an amazing thing to be part of.
Yeah, and I think there as well, the platform was for us really ideal. There were like extended reality challenges, several of them. I have seen others as well from Siemens, etc. But as well, the learning aspect for us as a company, I've learned from one company, Holcim, who have now new sensors, which gives you some feedback data, how good the concrete is, and you know, and immediately, you know, we talked in our teams. It's like, hey, you know, our property insurance maybe could benefit from knowing these technologies are now being looked at in this area, or another company who really tremendously looked on supply chain to make them more efficient, etc. This is as a reinsurance company and, you know, corporate solutions as a corporate insurance. These are all aspects of things where we maybe can use technology to prevent maybe risks or really better understand, you know, how we can mitigate these risks.
Absolutely. And you saw that again in some of the solutions that we were judging as well, about the depth of thought that had been put into that, and actually like modeling the venue that we were at, using the data available, whether it's from the robotic dog that you saw, or from some of the other assets that were in the room as well. So it wasn't just using, you know, pretend data or dummy data. It was real data from flood, as you were mentioning there, but also things that people were finding on site and being really dynamic with that and showing what you could do. And again, it was opening up that opportunity with these conversations, seeing what's happening in other sectors. One of the biggest things for innovation is you can see something over here and think, I hadn't thought about that before. Let's try that in our particular vertical. And then the contagion effect of that is incredible. And we saw so many examples of that.
That was the example. Maybe we quickly share it, because I really like this as well. So there was one company providing a laser measurement tool where they can measure everything and create a 3D model out of what has been measured. They brought a Boston Scientific robot dog. Everybody maybe has seen it once on YouTube or on social media, this little robot dog. So they installed this measurement device on the dog. Start walking around the techno park and created a 3D model of the building we were in. This thing taken by people working on our challenge and showing us on a device as like, okay, let's flood the techno park. And I was amazed. I think this was not even on the submission time. Already on Saturday, somebody sat next to me, had a technical questions to our VR experts, and he showed me how he rendered it on his laptop. And he was like, yeah, have a look here. I have now the 3D model from the techno park because I had the technology. Now I had your flood data, so I used this. And now he wanted to talk to some experts on our side, how he get his rendering into the VR room. I mean, how amazing is that?
It's amazing. And also one of those other teams as well, with that data, willing to share it with another team as well. They'd have a pivot. They weren't quite sure where they were going to go. Then they almost like stumbled upon an idea, you know, when you're having these brainstorming sessions. And as part of that, they needed that type of data. And I saw one team openly share it with another. So again, it's that power of collaboration, and also of kind of secure open data sharing as well, and what that can do for good as well. So many positive examples from that. I thought it was an amazing success. I really do. I'm excited what comes next.
Exactly. What has you mostly been impressed about the work from the winning team, Helvetica? What really impressed you the most?
What I thought about their submission, which is the strongest, was it was so balanced across the different areas. So when you're looking at some of them, there can be something that is incredibly technically strong, but maybe the narrative isn't quite so strong, where it's not quite tied to the brief. Their particular submission, it was like the 3 pillars of excellence, if you see what I mean, in terms of the community, the teamwork, the roles across the team, the storytelling and narrative, alignment to the challenge brief, and the technical development, and particularly technical development in the time and from their starting point as well. So it was incredibly strong across all those different areas. So it had all the foundations to really build forward and go very strong. So, and it also had, you know, they didn't know I was a judge, but I'd spoken to them like I did throughout the event, and, you know, seeing how people are working. I was also incredibly impressed there about their attitude, their questioning, and how they worked together and formed as a team during the event as well. So literally across all levels. That's why they came out on top of as our winner.
Exactly. So how would you say one of our main goals being at the HackZurich was for us, it's very important to be known as a data and tech company. I mean, we are not so known to specifically a very young community who are starting, you know, going into the, you know, more data, technology, analytics space, etc. We are seen as a reinsurance / corporate insurance company. We are not known. I mean, we have been partnered with Microsoft on the challenge.
Absolutely.
And I think that was really very attractive to some of the future talents. But yeah, how is your impression about how did Swiss Re do on the branding side?
Well, I would say it's a fantastic opportunity. I have an expression about changing the narrative, and I think you've done exactly that. That power of partnership, I think that's very strong. I totally agree with you. But for example, some things I've been sharing about the event online, who's been interacting with that, and the questions I'm getting, whether they're public on DM, it shows the curiosity. I think it's a very powerful thing. You know, when people are starting to ask, I hadn't known that before, didn't know you're associated with this particular area. When you're starting to get feedback like that straight away, that shows you're doing something that's conveying that message. So I think people are seeing what you can do in a very different way. And I think that's incredibly exciting. So yeah, I think these types of events are so strong to be involved in. It's targeting the right people. It's looking at the talent for the future. But it's also, within organizations, showing how things can be done differently. Like we're talking about forming teams in different ways and partnerships and how you solve problems in a different way. So I think incredibly strong. And it shows also underpinning all of this, the commitment about how you use data, technology and position and leadership in a space to do good. And create that shared value business outcome. So yeah, I think it couldn't have gone any better. I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and yeah, I can't wait to the next one.
Yeah, and I was really talking to some of the people coming up to the booth, and I think I want to say as well, thanks to all the people who helped us from internally Swiss Re, because I think it made a difference that we had young tech talents at the booth. We had our HoloLenses, of course, the experience which a lot of people came and wanted to experience for their own purpose on how it is. But I think really having the support from a very cross-functional team, we had developers, we had data scientists, we had a lot of people helping us out at a certain time, because none of us can work 3 days and nights alone, and I think that made a difference, that they had the direct access to talents and to learn firsthand how is it working in a company like Swiss Re on these type of topics. And I think another aspect which you already mentioned, and thanks for the feedback, is about how we could do better on using it as a recruitment, as a talent platform. We have had this nice QR code which people can come and scan, and they can upload their CV. But I really like your idea. Maybe we are open up this platform and they can submit as a video or can submit a nice piece of work they did in the data and tech space, because the ultimate is like, yes, we want to be known because for how we want to drive this innovative working, the new way of working, bringing this in for the benefits of our clients. Definitely. We need future talents, and hence this was one of our ideas. Supporting the HackZurich.
And definitely with diversity in tech as well. I think reaching out to people in new ways is really important. And I was speaking to one of your colleagues, Philip, about this, and he was like, again, the active listening about what talent is saying and how they apply to organizations and how they make their choices and what they want to do. And he was like, I'm going to go to HR tomorrow, and can we do this differently? And can we change our application process? So it was a very dynamic, really listening to what people are saying, and we can make changes around that. I think we should do. And so I love that, because that just shows the benefit of something like this, and you're finding out all this other information about how people are kind of making choices about their future employment. And maybe we're missing out on different talent because we're not approaching it in the right way. And is curriculum vitae really so relevant anymore? Is it more doing something and like why I care and what I can do and what sort of projects I want to be involved in and what my skills are and what my beliefs are, what my values are? So I think that's very exciting for the future too. So yeah, on so many ways, not just the technology, but also, as you were saying, the positioning, the value, but also opening up talent for the future as well. So a really kind of cross-sectoral mix of benefits, I would say.
Yeah, I really like this as well. I mean, diversity, have you seen? There are winning teams for different challenges, which were pure female.
Absolutely.
There were very diversity in terms of nationalities. Our winning team had included a person from Stockholm, while they had, people from other countries, working on site, some of them hybrid. We had winning teams who were completely, virtual. I think the diversity in terms of as well age, I think gender,
neurodiversity too.
We had neurodiversity as well. Yeah. This is, of course, it represents our future workforce in a small ecosystem, and I think that's why I think we should really start working like
100%.
like this in the real world.
Absolutely. And as I say, with hackathons done well, they're the beginning of something. And that's what felt so strong about this event. Everything about it was really well put together. And it feels like not the end, it feels like the beginning. And that's the most powerful thing. It's like, it's not the end of 40 hours and there's a winner and that's the end of it. It is like the start of new teams forming and teams that have come through, really putting through and actually actualizing on what they've started here. So that's super exciting. So yeah, it's the beginning, not the end, I would say.
Exactly. But if you start, what are the 3 learnings you want us to take forward for next event, next hackathon, next recruitment event, next internal innovation project with our clients? What are the 3 key learnings?
So yeah, definitely look at the attention to visibility. Visibility absolutely matters. So when we're looking at like team formation, make sure we do have that structure in place. We can make it hybrid. We can make it remote. We can make sure things are accessible and make sure we're looking at all aspects of diversity. That's why I mentioned neurodiversity earlier, because sometimes that's less explored and less focused upon. And that's what I loved about this event. Every single kind of challenge was really supporting that. So I love that. So I think that's super important. Look at new ways to build projects. So I think look at different working structures, I think is really important as well, but outreach in new ways. Look at, not just traditional ways of recruiting for universities or even apprenticeships or even the traditional job advert. Go to places where the talent is, Look at things in different social media channels, even TikTok, for example, particularly around social impact. So many young people are sharing what they care about and the projects they're doing in their local community to make a difference. Look at that in a different way. That could be your next engineer for the future. So look at where you reach out in new ways, I think is hugely important. I think the hackathon environment, we've shown it over the last few days. What a catalyst, what a kind of amazing kind of melting pot of innovation. So I think do more of these type of events and maybe even like do one internally, host one here in your amazing building here and make that a kind of hub of innovation and perhaps create something within this building that becomes almost like a little mini lab of innovation space that allows that experimentation, innovation and like reach out to local community resources as well, the education spaces. I think something could be done in this very building to do something that kind of scales the hackathon approach on a mini level actually here every day and people can experience life at Swiss Re. So I think that would be really exciting to do. But yeah, and the other thing is storytelling. You're doing some amazing projects. I learned a lot about like Coral Reef, for example, the work you're doing there. So many examples of that. Share those stories because they're really exciting. And I think the more we can show about the power of technology, data, the insurance sector, people we haven't heard of before, about the difference this can make to reduce risk and create good in the world. The more we can share those stories, the more encourages others, and we create that circle. And people think, I want to be part of that. I didn't know that before. We can make a difference, and we can make a difference by coming together. I think that's what we've seen. We've seen the power of the collective.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure.
And again, thanks for talking to me here today. It was a pleasure to have you on the jury and supporting your support throughout the weekend. And looking forward really for the next event on that.
Absolutely, me too. Thank you, Bianca. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.